Best ideas are free with Ben Young from Bwaggy.com.
Yeah, bwagy.com, and also on Twitter under the same name as well. G'day there, Ben.
Good morning.
Nice to see you.
Yeah, likewise.
So you're talking about the business case for making things open source. I guess, first of all, a good idea to explain what open source is.
So, open source is a framework for software development. So anything that you see within the browser or anything on the desktop of your computer. Also, often on mobiles these days, if you have an Android device, a lot of things on there are open source. Some things on the iPhone are open source.
What does open source mean?
So open source means that they open up the inner workings of how an application works to the public, and they say download it, tweak it, and change what you want.
Mm-hmm.
Clearly not everyone is downloading it and tweaking it, but those that care about the software and that are programmers and they understand how it works, they'll get in there and they'll fix things they don't like and they'll change things, and essentially what they do is they try and make it better. Now, I remember first hearing about open source when I think I was about 14, and someone explained it to me that anyone can get a copy, and if something's broken, you can fix it or suggest a better alternative, and then you submit it. And if the organisation likes it, they'll add it into the next release.
Right.
Which to me is amazing. That's like a band going out and saying, here's what we thought we'd do with our song. Why don't you guys produce it for us? Make it, do your own interpretation. Send it back, and if it's good enough, we'll put it on the next CD.
But there's the risk there, though, that the business might take that idea and for free and not pay for it?
Well, in terms of software, we live in an age where if someone can see it, they can replicate it.
Mm.
So once you've done something and demonstrated it to the public, they're going to figure out how to decode it anyway.
Okay.
If you look at the likes of when PlayStation 3 launches and people have mod chips out for it within a couple of days, like once they can see it and they can play with it, they can get into the code anyway.
It is something that I wonder, though. I've always wondered about open source, that people dedicate so much time. Let's take an example, the Firefox browser. A lot of people using the Firefox browser. That is an open source web browser.
Yeah.
And for a long time I've wondered, well, what is the business case for all these people who are giving their hours and time and their brain power into making the software better?
The thing is, often for the people contributing, it's not how they make their money. It's more of a hobby. They love the project, so they're willing to contribute. The same way that you like a band, that you'd be willing to contribute to them. However, some people do use their contributions to open source to elevate their credibility or use that experience to help them gain extra work or move up the ladder. So from their point of view, they're having a lot of fun. They get to see their work in action in real life, used by tens of millions of people, which is quite a rare opportunity these days.
Yeah.
And it does help boost their credibility.
So it's a way of showcasing them in another field where they could earn money from.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. But what I wanted to look at was, as a business choosing software, what's best? Do you look at a custom software solution, an open source solution, or a proprietary solution? So a custom built is where someone will build it according to your specifications.
Yeah.
A proprietary solution is where you're licensing software that already exists for your own use. So a good example would be using Microsoft Word, which was a proprietary solution, and then using OpenOffice, which is an open source equivalent, or getting someone to make you something.
Yeah.
Now, in terms of business value, they all demonstrate different business value depending on your situation. For example, if you're using website software, arguably I would say to go with the open source alternative, because if you get a proprietary solution, they don't have as much reach into the market, so they don't have as many people testing it.
Right.
And if you go with an open source solution, for example, if you're blogging and you use WordPress, you're actually buying the collective failure of over 50 million blogs. And you're not paying anything for it.
Yeah.
Unless the other alternatives have much more volume in the market, it doesn't make sense.
And it's so obviously tried and true, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Well, if there's 50 million blogs around the world, chances are they've experienced mistakes that you're never going to have to experience. And so when people are evaluating software, they need to consider this, because if you go with the custom solution, because you're paying for someone's time to build you something, when there are failures, you have to pay for that.
Yeah.
Whereas when you go with open source, quite often it's free, but you don't even have to pay for those failures. So it's a lower cost to implement, but also a lower cost to maintain, because people have already made the mistakes.
And there's always an army of help out there, isn't there?
Yes, especially if you go for really popular platforms.
Yeah.
There's so many people using it that should a problem arise, you can get it fixed very quickly.
Okay.
Also, because it's open source, the beauty of it is you can then add in custom components to achieve exactly what you wanted to achieve with a custom build.
And when should you go for proprietary?
So, an example with this, and people will argue with me, is in a situation where the software that you're looking at, the proprietary solution has the largest volume in the marketplace. And the reasoning behind that is, and there are definitely quirks in the argument, is that the more people using it, the greater the failure rate, the safer it is from a business point of view. If you want to do something risky, go for a more agile, newer player. But in terms of, let's look at word processing. Microsoft Word has the largest volume in the market. An open source alternative, yes, that could be cool, but does it have the same volume in the marketplace to make up for all those mistakes? So, you can see there's arguments to both sides, but in a situation
Would a better example be accounting software like MYOB or...
Yeah, that would be a great example, where you get a license for Xero, and then you tap into their collective user base, and that's actually a great example, because Xero is a software as a service. They update their software every month. But
also going back to the WordPress example, I mean, that's an example of a company that had the lead already in there. So, that they had a head start into word processing.
Yeah.
At some point, it would be great to have. I mean, we do have the Open Word being the example, but how do they end up on some kind of parity if everyone is continuously going to go for the leader?
So this is the flip side of what makes open source so good, is that because people are contributing and they're guiding the software development. They're saying, look, editing live HTML is the way that we're going, so we're going to add in lots of features. So they guide the path of the software, and the software tends to follow the market demands much more thoroughly. Whereas when you're a proprietary player, you don't quite get that market feedback loop. So Microsoft Word is a good example of that, where they don't quite have that same feedback loop.
Yeah.
So it could be argued that the solution that they offer today is not robust enough for what the public wants. And that's where an open source solution comes in. So that's the key thing to look at from a business point of view. The cost of failure, someone else has already bared the cost. You don't need to do it yourself. The cost of implementation, so many other people have done it, and there's so much more people with support that you can lower your cost of implementation, but also easier to scale.
Okay, easier to scale.
Yeah.
Ben, thanks so much for that. People can continue the conversation over at bwaggy.com, bwaggy.com, and also on Twitter as well. We'll see you next time.
Cheers.
We have a track now from Tiki Tane with Bulletproof. Soundtrack to Forever is the name of this tune.
Forever, and no one to show us how.